We're going to be starting a lesson on probability today, just an intro into this area. And the most important thing is that we understand that probabilities are between 0 or 1, or we can say between 0% and 100%. There are 3 points that are very special, and so they have names to them. Impossible is a 0%. That would be like the sun will not rise tomorrow. Even odds is something that's 50-50, which would be 0.5 or a half, like tossing a coin and getting heads. And then certain would be something that will happen for sure. So when you toss a coin, getting either a heads or a tail. There's 2 other words that we need to know. It can either be not likely or unlikely, which is a whole zone, something that is bigger than 0 but less than a half. Anything in that zone is called unlikely. And the opposite of that would be something that's bigger than a half but less than 1. And this is likely. So rolling a coin and getting a 2, that would be 1 out of 6 odds. So that would be unlikely. Rolling a coin and getting anything other than a 2. Anything other than a 2 would be 5 out of 6. So that would be the opposite end, likely. We can have anything along in here, okay, will work for both of those. It's a big zone where these are exact points. So can you have a probability of 120%? No, you cannot. The percentages in this case ends at 100%. You could get 100% or 120% on a test, but this is not talking about a grade on a test. This is saying, can a probability be 120%? No, 100% is a certain event. Give an example of a certain event. That's something that will occur. The sun will rise tomorrow. Give an example of an impossible event. Well, on this dice, an impossible event would be rolling a 7. There's no 7 on here. That's not going to happen. What word would describe a probability of 3/8? Well, 3/8 is right here, less than a half. 4/8 would be a half. So that would be unlikely or not likely. A lot of the questions are going to be very easy and just asking you to categorize certain events along the continuum. You will go swimming on a hot summer day. Quite likely that I would go swimming. Over 50%. I may not, but it is likely. There will be children wearing costumes on Halloween. Well, it is certain that somewhere in the world, kids will wear costumes on Halloween. Not all kids, but there will be at least some kids. So that would be certain. Your hair will grow 5 inches in 1 day. With our present technology, that would be down here. Okay, impossible on the present time. And a coin you flip will land on heads. Well, one side is heads, the other side is tails. So that's going to occur half the time, and that would be as likely as not or even odds. So you'll see a few of those, and then a couple of questions it's going to ask you to review going from percent to decimals to fraction. So if you take 35 and change it to a decimal, you would do 35 divided by 100, which would be 35 hundredths. To write it as a fraction, you would write it as you read it. This would be 35 over 100, and I could take a 5 out of them both, or I could use my calculator to reduce. What word would describe that? Well, 7 out of 20. If I got 7 out of 20, that's less than half, so that would be unlikely. 35%, 35 hundredths, those are all less than a half. Okay, how I would do this one is I would write it as I read it. So that's 9 hundredths, which is not reducible. To go back the other way, this is now a multiplication problem by 100. A percents are per every 100, so that would be 9 hundredths. So 9 out of 100 would be way down here. It would be, again, unlikely. Not impossible, but not likely. 3 out of 5. That would be 3 divided by 5 on my calculator. Top divided by bottom is how I would do that. And that would give me on a calculator 0.6. And again, I would times that by 100 to change it to a percent, because percents are per every 100. So 60%, okay, or 3/5 would be a little bit bigger than half. So those would represent a likely event. Okay. A couple of questions is going to actually ask you to use your probability to figure something out. They're going to keep the numbers easy. The probability the student guesses the correct answer on a 5-choice multiple choice question is 2/10. Okay. How many questions should the student expect to guess right on 60 questions? Well, 20 hundredths of the 60, or 1/5. That means 1/5. Those mean the same thing. I would get a calculator out and I'd multiply those together, which would get me that he would get, randomly just guessing, 12 correct. As you're doing your homework, go back and look at this video. You do not need to take notes on it, but just use this video as a reference.